drug problem and some of the things that we are doing. We know that it always takes a three-pronged approach. It takes, first of all, the most important thing is education, prevention. Second is the law enforcement side, and third is the treatment side. We're talking today about the work of Ohio's drug task forces. The work of these task forces is essential in the fight against this epidemic. Our task forces help disrupt the flow of drugs that are coming into our communities. We have many task forces throughout the state. Some are one county, some are multiple counties. And what we're talking about today is some of the things that we're doing to assist these task forces. They play a very, very important role. Just as an example, in 2019, task forces that are funded through our Ohio Office of Criminal Justice Services, and this would be partial funding or complete funding, but usually it would be a partial, executed nearly 4,000 search warrants, and their investigations led to more than 5,000 indictments. We all know that Ohio cannot arrest its way out of this problem. Law enforcement is important. These task forces and their interdiction of drugs is very, very important. But prevention and education and certainly treatment are all also very, very important. That's why, as part of our Recovery Ohio initiative, we requested a total of $5 million over the biennium from the legislature. The legislature included this in the budget, $2.5 million per year, to expand the work of existing drug task forces in Ohio. And let me put the emphasis on expansion of the existing drug task forces. Later on in my comments, I will get to another pot of money that has to do with the creation of new task forces. I wanted to give these local task forces this extra money, not only to go after high-level drug traffickers, which some of the money will be used for, but also to promote Recovery Ohio's mission of increasing substance use and mental health awareness, implementing age-appropriate prevention education in schools, and connecting those who need help with treatment. I'm grateful that Ohio's General Assembly fully funded this request. We have a few members of our legislature here who are with us today, Frank Hoagland, Bill Reinecke, and we just thank them, but also all the members of the General Assembly, frankly, for this support. Today I'm happy to announce that this year's new funding is now on its way to more than 24 of Ohio's drug task forces, specifically to 27 different task forces throughout the state of Ohio. In our communities, children are facing drug-related challenges. Parental substance use, unfortunately, continues to be a problem. Opioids are prevalent, and we're seeing an increase in the use of meth and cocaine. 27 task forces applied. All will receive funding to attack the drug epidemic in a very holistic way. Today we have representatives from a few of these drug task forces with us today. Fairfield Athens Major Crime Unit, the Greater Warren County Drug Task Force, Trumbull County's TAG Drug Task Force, Licking County's Code Task Force, Ottawa County's Regional Task Force, the Lake County Narcotics Agency, and the Brown County Drug and Major Crimes Task Force. Now let me tell you a little bit about what these agencies plan to do with these funds. Brown County's task force, in their grant application, told us that without this funding, it would be nearly impossible to continue operations at all. Their new funding will not only help keep their task force alive, but it will also be used to maintain their quick response team, which links those who need treatment with help. So not only on the law enforcement side to keep it going, but also in regard to treatment, helping people get into treatment. Next, the Code Task Force, headquartered in Licking County, plans to increase their organized interdiction and supply reduction operations by 50%, as well as offer more drug awareness, presentations in the communities they serve. So again, law enforcement, in addition to law enforcement, the education side, they will be engaged in as well. Likewise, the Greater Warren County Drug Task Force and the Trumbull Action Group Drug Task Force will also use their funds to support overall drug investigations, but also community outreach as well. Let me now introduce Fairfield County Sheriff Dave Phelan, who will tell you more about how the Fairfield-Athens Major Crimes Unit will use some of their funding to help task forces across the state implement effective quick response teams to get individuals into treatment. The quick response team model is a model that's been used throughout Ohio, and it's basically when law enforcement looked at the situation and said, people are going to the emergency room, they've overdosed, they've been or being released from the emergency room and nothing's happening. They're going right back. And so this was an effort to really break that cycle. And it's a model that in different forms we have seen work very, very well across the state of Ohio. Sheriff, I'll get out of your way here. Thanks.
Thank you, Governor. And being part of the Fairfield-Athens Major Crimes Unit, we understand how important it is as far as enforcement and other components. You know, we think that the #1 responsibility of our Major Crimes Unit is to do our dead level best to put people in the penitentiary when they bring drugs into our community, when they go into our schools and throughout our neighborhoods. But we also understand that there are low-level offenders, there are individuals that are addicted, and they need some help. That's why a couple of years ago we started Project Fort, which is Fairfield Overdose Response Team. So when our deputies are on the scene of an overdose, we go ahead and get a hold of them. They come out, get information, and try to link those families, that individual up with help. We know for sure that once they overdose and survive, there's a high likelihood that if they do survive, they're going to go ahead and do it again and again and again, and many times with a very sad outcome. So it's been very successful. Scott Duff and a number of people, the fire department's involved, there's other community agencies involved, and they've just done a terrific job. In fact, there's one incident, or one situation, I could stand up here and talk about many, where they had an individual, they responded, they got him help, they got him into treatment, and today he's a firefighter. So these lives can be changed. I'm proud of what they've done, and they've certainly made a difference in Fairfield County and throughout our region. Thank you, Governor.
Sure, thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. The Lake County Narcotics Agency was forced to cut its countywide drug education program and to eliminate the DARE officers in 2013. This task force is using some of the funding that we are supplying them with to create a Train the Trainer program for schools so that teachers can provide their own up-to-date drug awareness and prevention instruction. Here to tell you more is the commander, David Frazone. Commander, come on up, and we appreciate very, very much you being here. I'll get out of your way.
Thank you, Governor. Appreciate it. Just like the Governor said, one of the key cornerstones of a drug task force is to enforce drug laws, and we focus on that every day. However, we also, all of us, get requests from our communities to provide education and outreach. And unfortunately, back in 2013, because of budget restrictions, the Lake County Narcotics Agency was forced to lay off all of our DARE officers, and we covered about 1/3 of the county with drug education in that fashion. And since then, we've been looking for a way, but we just didn't have the resources to get back into our schools. It's difficult for me to take undercover narcotics agents and put them in front of students in classrooms, and coordinating that is a real difficult challenge. However, when this Recovery Ohio initiative came out from the governor's office, a light bulb went off in my units, and all my guys in my unit decided that we are well poised to educate adults on the dangers of drugs, the current drug trends that we face, And as well, we have an evidence room with closed cases that have all kinds of actual drug evidence to show people who have never seen drugs. So we put together a program where we will visit our 9 school districts in Lake County, and during teacher in-service, we will provide training to the teachers, the school health aides, the school nurses, and the staff and administrators on what my guys see on a daily basis in our county. In turn, we will provide them with educational materials, lesson plans, PowerPoint slides, so that they can provide that age-appropriate education that maybe police officers aren't the best to do that, but teachers certainly are. So we're gonna transfer that education, train the trainer, so that they can use that time in their classroom to teach their students on the dangers of drug abuse and to provide some drug abuse prevention education.
Commander, thanks.
Thanks, sir.
In Ottawa County, there currently are no programs aimed at helping incarcerated offenders who are due to be released from jail. With this new grant funding, the Ottawa County Regional Task Force will create a program to help inmates make a successful transition to life outside of jail. Commander Matt Gandy is here to tell us about the new program. Commander, come on up.
Kind of like everybody's mentioned, like our number one goal is to apprehend and incarcerate people that bring drugs into our county. But one of the things that we've quickly realized is, especially with these new statute changes with House Bill 86 and things of that sort, like nonviolent, low-level offenders, rather than being sentenced to prison, they're being sentenced to our local jail. And at a state level and in counties nearby, they have these programs for state prisoners for reentry program. Once they're released to prison, they're kind of provided linkage to have successful lives. Currently, that's not possible for us. So with this funding that Governor DeWine has given us, we plan to introduce a reentry programming for those nonviolent, low-level felons that are serving their sentences locally. Though those prisons have those different types of reentry programming, local inmates don't necessarily have the same opportunities to seek those various types of training. With that funding and successful partnerships with state and local agencies, the Ottawa County Regional Task Force is going to assist those ex-offenders by providing linkages to the services they may need to rebuild their lives. The primary focus of our reentry efforts are going to be to reduce and eliminate barriers to successful reentry so that the motivated individuals, the ones that have paid their debts to society and served their time, are able to maintain recovery from substance abuse, receive continued mental health treatment, compete for jobs, care for their families, and contribute to the communities as a whole. Once they're released from jail, we'd like to kind of get them job training and put them on the right, basically offer life coaches that can kind of put them on the right track to be successful and maintain success, not just get out, realize it's hard and reoffend and then back in the prison system. So I really think that we're on the right track, and we appreciate the funding, Governor.
Very much so. Appreciate it. Thank you. Well, those are just a few of the examples of how this money is going to be used. Let me also mention that the legislature also provided for an additional $6.8 million to create new anti-drug cartel interdiction task forces, new task forces. The task forces that we've been talking about are existing task forces. But just to keep it in perspective, legislature at our request came up with $6.8 million to create new cartel interdiction task forces that will focus aggressively on intercepting drugs and money control by Mexican drug cartels. These brand new task forces will operate as part of the Attorney General David Yost Ohio Organized Crime Investigation Commission. Several of these task forces, a number of them actually are in the works, but they have not, due to confidentiality laws, we are not yet legally allowed to talk about them. They are in the works. But we can talk about ones that we're working with Attorney General Yost in existing task forces that is being expanded with this money. And again, the focus is on the big drug dealers and the cartels. The Major Drug Interdiction Task Force of Franklin County is an example. It is now the Franklin-Madison Major Drug Interdiction Task Force, as they are now working in partnership with authorities in Madison County. That came as a result of the additional money. The Major Drug Interdiction Task Force of Lucas County is expanding its work in partnership with authorities in Wood County, as now the Lucas Wood Major Drug Interdiction Task Force. So there's a couple examples of where this additional money is going. And as I said, we are not allowed to talk about some of these until there's actually a bust, and this becomes public. So we have to wait to describe in detail the other ones, but there's other ones that are ongoing at this point. More than happy to take any questions. We got experts here behind me, and anybody has any questions about these task forces or anything else?
I was going to ask, how does this work with the Ohio Narcotics Intelligence Center that you announced a while ago? I haven't seen any updates on what's going on.
Yeah, that's good. Tom or Carlton, you want to take that? Tom Stickrath?
Tom Stickrath, Director of Public Safety. And yes, the answer, they work hand in hand with the Narcotics Intelligence Center. The ONIC is up and running. They've had some very good early successes. We're staffed up now. Our Director, Cindy Peterman, is here as well of ONIC. Both the Columbus office and our office outside of Cleveland are up and running. Some very good early work with our cyber forensic component there. As well as some of the other work with our criminal analyst. And so this just dovetails right in because part of the ONIC design was to give support to these task forces. Thank you.
Who else?
Governor, I just wanted to ask you on a different topic, what do you think
Oh,
about
shocking.
these two proposed ballot initiatives, one about a $13 minimum wage and the other about a automatic voter registration? What do you think about those?
I really not looked at those. I'll be more than happy to talk to you later about them. Who else?
Citizens for Community Values on.
Oh, you know, I get warned by my lawyers that I'm not supposed to talk about lawsuits, and I probably shouldn't even say whether I was expecting it or not. What's the old? If I could do, what's the old? You know, you got to be the worst client is a lawyer. You know, that's what lawyers always say. You don't want a lawyer for a client. But let me just, Randy, this may answer your question you have not asked yet, but if it doesn't, we'll come right back and you'll get the next shot at me. Look, I've reached out to the Speaker, I've reached out to the Senate President, asked them for a meeting this week. We will have that meeting this week. We need to move forward. We need to be able to resolve this impasse between the Senate and the House. And let me, if I could, just state maybe some general principles without getting into all the details. But I think it's important for us to talk about the general principles. And these will be the general principles that I will take into these discussions. I think these general principles also have been what has governed this state in the last few years as we look at education policy. We want to make sure that poor children in the state of Ohio who are in a bad educational situation, who cannot get the education that they need, have choices and have options, and that their parents have choices and have options for these poor children who are in a difficult situation. We cannot be in a situation where they don't have the same option that a wealthier family, a family with more money, has. That's principle number one. Number two, we have in the state of Ohio many very excellent public schools. Our educational system in the state has been built on public schools. Many of them are doing a great job. We whatever we do, we cannot disrupt these public schools. So these are the two basic principles that I think there's been a consensus in this state for some time on. The devil's always in the details. I fully understand that. But again, we cannot turn our back on kids who are in a difficult situation and whose families do not have the resources that other families have to make choices. We want them to be able to make choices. But we also have to protect, preserve our public schools. This is a balance that I'm convinced we can achieve. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to working with the Speaker and the Senate President to achieve these two goals. Anybody else?
Do you understand, though, the frustration perhaps of parents who are relying effective February 1?
Well, I think there's,
Be allowed to-
look, I think there's a great deal of frustration, and I certainly understand frustration of parents. We have heard from these parents. We have also obviously heard from our public schools. And again, I think that, you know, as you all know, I'm an optimist. I think we can reach an agreement which balances these two needs and these two basic principles so that we can move forward. And frankly, the sooner we do this, the better. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing for us to do to get this done. So I will be more involved in these discussions, and we will start with a meeting where we'll come together with the Speaker and the Senate President. Thank you all very much.
As you know, DRC, in its capital budget, wants to look at the possibility of replacing some of its high-security prisons or units.
Sure.
And I'm curious what your thoughts are on this.
Let me explain the process we go through. The process, and I don't know what other administrations have done. I assume it's the same, but I don't know that. In our administration, we have asked each department to come forward with their wish list, basically, or what they think are their priorities. We go through then a discussion with our staff to look at those priorities. Then we go through a discussion with me. So all of these proposals, we are now in the process of evaluating, not just DRCs. So I'm going to reserve judgment, and we will, when you see the capital budget, or maybe before, you'll see exactly, what we are going to be doing. But it is a work in progress. No decision has been made. No decision has been made really on anything on the capital budget yet, but it will be fairly soon.
When will we see your capital budget?
This is, again, something, we have to talk with the Senate President and the Speaker about. As you know, these capital bills are kind of a joint effort, so.
Do you think we see it now your state of the state?
We'll see. Got to talk to the Speaker and the Senate President. But look, we fully expect to have a capital bill this year, and it's important. So.
Governor, the Speaker expressed frustration today with the refusal of Ohio State University to accept ownership of the Richard Strauss problem and the couple of hundred young students he allegedly molested, and is trying to resume hearings on House Bill 249 and lift the statute of limitations. Do you think Ohio State has stepped up to the plate here?
Well, they've been involved. I have not been involved in negotiations. That's not my job. I should not be. But I have been kept informed by Ohio State. I'm not going to speak for Ohio State, but this is something that I fully expect to see resolved. I think that there's no one in Ohio who can feel good about what happened to those students and those victims. It is a very, very sad day in Ohio history, or days, when this occurred. And I think that I would fully expect that Ohio State would reach an agreement that would respect those victims. Thank you all very much.